On today's call in XRS, we're going to go through how to log into the website. We're going to go through some general features of the home page, and then we're going to talk about entity configuration. So how do you set up your vehicles? How do you set up your drivers, your devices? We'll talk some about setting up users, setting up sites, what you're going to need to get everything up and running right away in XRS. The first thing that we'll talk about then is logging into the website. The URL that you're going to go to log into the website is going to be www.zetaxrs.com. www.zetaxrs.com. You're going to input your company login ID, your username, and then type in your password. Then you can either click on your enter button or click on the login button. Now there's also a forgot your username and or password link. If you click on that link right here, you're going to be asked to enter in your email address, and if you enter that in, you'll be sent an email that'll contain your login ID, your username, and a temporary password. Now when I get logged in to the website, we land on the home page here, and in the very upper left hand corner you're going to see your username that you're logged in as. To the right of that you'll see a star icon, and that's how to add favorites to the website. You can see here if I hover over that, I have one favorite added, and that's Fleet View. And the way that adding favorites work is when you go to a page on the XRS website, if you want to add that as a favorite, you just go up here, hover over that star, go to favorites, and then you click on the add star right there, and that'll add the page that you're on to your list of favorites. The next icon to the right is your alerts inbox. It looks like a triangle with an exclamation mark in it. And when you set up and configure alerts on the website, any alerts that are sent back will go to that inbox. Now, alerts are also able to be sent to email addresses as well, and that's a configuration setting when you're setting up alerts, and also setting up users as well. There's also a messages inbox, and that's the icon that looks like an envelope. So when a driver, for example, sends a message from their mobile device back to the XRS website, that'll go into the messages inbox. Now that's also able to be configured to be sent to an email address as well. So for alerts and messages, you don't necessarily have to be logged into the website to receive either of those two. Moving over to the right, there's your My Account link. When you click on My Account link, you'll see your account information here. On the My Account information page, you'll see a change password link in the upper right hand corner. So if you need to change your password, if you've been set up with a generic username and password, or password most likely, go ahead and change that password to something you're more familiar with. If you click on the edit button right here, that's where you can change your account information. So if I click on edit, there's my account information that I can change. There's the Contact Us link. When you click on the Contact Us link, this is the number for support, telephone number for support. That's down here under Call Us. There's also an email address to support. And in this beta process, if you find something that you don't think is right, or something that you'd like to maybe see changed, or just anything in general, we would like to see an email or a telephone call pertaining to that, so that we can take a look at the issue, get it logged, and hopefully get it resolved. So definitely we want to hear feedback and about any problems you might be running into regarding the website. And lastly, there's the logout link. And the logout link, pretty self-explanatory. When I click on logout, it's just going to bring me back to that login screen. Now, down below that information, we have the scorecard. And the scorecard is what you're going to see when you log in, depending on how you have your configuration settings set for your user ID that's logged in. And the scorecard is just going to give you kind of a general overview of some different aspects of what's happening with your fleet. You can see some of the different things. We'll be able to get a kind of an overview of our miles per gallon, stop idle percentage, speeding miles, hard brakes, high speed brakes, and violations. This is going to be reported for the last approximately 7 days, and you can see the date over here on the left that the scorecard is reporting back on. Below the scorecard is our XRS blog, so you can take a look at some of the information contained in the blog. Over to the right of that is the announcement section of the website. So if there's anything pertinent that we have to pass on to the customer base, that'll be listed in the announcement section. An announcement example might be we're doing an upgrade of the website, and maybe it'll be unavailable for a period of 10 minutes or half hour or something of that nature. So you just want to take a quick look at the announcement section to see if there's anything there that is relevant to your day-to-day business on the website. At the top of the screen here, we have the different tabs that you can see available here. And I'm just going to go through kind of a quick overview of what's on each one of them. The home tab here, when you click on it, it'll just take you back to this home page that we're viewing right now. Fleet view, if you click on Fleet view, that's the mapping on the website. So that's how to find out where your truck is located. HOS, that's going to be all the hours of service information. So things, as you can see, such as I want to view a driver log report, I want to view my violations report, look at my driver log summary, edit the driver's log, for example. Under DVIR, the inspections that your drivers do on the mobile device, for example, when they start a trip or end a trip with a tractor or a trailer inspection, we can view that under DVIR. Performance, that's going to be where your performance reports are going to be located on the website. So things such as your scorecard, operation profile reports, idle time reports, alert reports. Just some examples of what you'll find there. Under messaging, if a driver sends me a message from the mobile device to the website, I can view that in my inbox. Send a message. So I want to send a message to a driver, for example. So that'll be contained on the messaging tab. If there's going to be your fuel tax information. Admin, so that's where we set up our company settings. We set up users, assign them to user roles. Pretty much everything that you need for setup is found here. So like your entities, set up my vehicle, set up my drivers, my devices, set up my sites. So that's kind of an overview of what you're going to see along the tabs at the top. Now the one that I also want to point out is under help. And this is going to be where you hopefully can find a lot of answers to questions that you might be having, especially starting out. When I click on getting started right here, it's going to open up another tab, or it's going to pop up another window, depending on how you have your browser configured. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the different information in here. Now on the very left hand side of the screen, you're going to see your different table of contents. This getting started guide is a good place to start. When I click here for the quick start guide, it's going to talk about the 3 parts of XRS. So part 1, the website. Things such as setting up your vehicles, setting up your drivers, okay, setting up your mobile devices on the website. And each one of these has a link to do that. So for example, you're going to have to set up your mobile devices on the website. Okay, click here to add mobile devices and it'll go through the step-by-step procedures to add your mobile devices to the website. The same with drivers and the same with vehicles. Those are three important things that you're going to have to do to get your website set up, to get your trucks communicating. So once again, that was under Getting Started, Guide over here on the left, Quick Start, and then Set Up XRS Cloud. So that's the website. Now there's also Set Up XRS Mobile. That's going to be the mobile device. Installing XRS to a mobile device. There's a XRS installation guide for Android, and there's an XRS installation guide if you're a Windows Mobile customer as well. If I click on that, it's going to take me through the step-by-step procedures to install XRS to a mobile device. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here coming up. And then lastly, talking about setting up your relays. Your relay is that black box that is installed in each one of the vehicles. And there's a video on how to set that up. It's approximately 5 minutes in duration. And if you have, let's say, a mechanic or somebody who's in charge of setting those relays up, this is a good video for them to watch. Take them step by step through how to install that relay into that vehicle. You can see also, we haven't covered everything here in the table of contents, but there's a lot of information in here. Okay, this is our knowledge base. XRS user guide. You'll notice here that if I click on XRS user guide and expand that out, how we see topics that mimic the tabs at the top of the screen here. So home, fleet view, hours of service, DVIR, and so on. And in the help, hours of service, fleet view, performance, messaging, and so on. So if you're looking at some help under those specific tabs, you can navigate out to the areas of the website that you need some assistance on. For example, I'm adding entities. So I have my vehicles. How do I add a vehicle? My XRS relays, drivers, devices. How do I add sites? So get used to, or hopefully acclimate yourself to the different features out here in the knowledge base. It's going to be very helpful. The hope is that if you do have questions, you can navigate out to the knowledge base and find the answers to the questions that you might have. Also, we're going to have some user guides out there. Now, not all of this information has been updated since we're still in the beta phase, so there is probably going to be quite a few changes to the, whether it be user guides, training, downloads, and then once again I've clicked, opened up the knowledge base, and when I click on the knowledge base, this is the screen that you'll land on. So once again, the tabs at the top of the screen there, you have fleet view, hours of service, DVIR, performance, for example. There's also a FAQ section, okay, talking about your admin section here as well, so setting up your devices and whatnot. And then, like I stated earlier, over here on the left, there's our Getting Started guide, user guide, some compliance resources if you'd like to take a look at those, driver resources where you'll find things like your installation guide, your law enforcement cab card, driver guides, so how the driver uses the Android device, for example. Once again, a lot of good information in that knowledge base. Okay, let's talk some then about the entity creation. So when we first get started, how do we get things going? Okay. Well, once again, I'd go to the knowledge base and I'd probably go to the Getting Started guide and just kind of work off of that. So when I click here for the Quick Start guide, I'd first probably take care of the XRS Cloud. Okay, click here to begin part 1. Your organization's probably set up already. Okay, you can take a look at some of the organization information. Step 2, adding your mobile devices to the website, adding drivers, and then adding vehicles. So where I'm going to start is I'm going to hover over admin, and we'll just start right at the top of the entities, and we'll talk about adding vehicles to the website. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on vehicles. Okay, at the top of these pages where you have to add your entities, for example, like adding your vehicles, whether it's adding a vehicle, whether it's adding a driver, you're going to see this filtering feature on the top of the screen here. So here I can filter by different organizations. If I have different organizations set up and only want to see the vehicles associated with specific organization or organizations, you just put a check mark in the box and click on save, and then you would only see those vehicles in that organization. And it works the same way whether you're viewing the page of drivers or page of users or so on. Status, here's another way I can filter if I just want to see active or inactive vehicles, for example. And then resource groups, you can filter by resource groups, and we'll talk about what resource groups are here in a few minutes. Also at the top of these entity pages here, such as vehicles, drivers, there's also an import button here, and there's an export button. And what each of those is for is if you want to import a list of vehicles, there's some import templates that you can find in the help, and as long as you fill out those templates and match the import file specifications, whether it be for driver, whether it be for vehicles as an example, you can import a list of drivers or a list of vehicles into the website instead of adding them one by one. There's also the export button right here. So if I want to export my list of vehicles or drivers, for example, to a file, I can do so by clicking on the export button. And then lastly, whether you're on here, we happen to be adding a vehicle, so you're going to see that add vehicle button. If we were adding a driver, which we'll show you how to do in a second, it'll say add driver. Up here on the header here, where you can see the different columns, you can sort these columns by clicking on them to sort in ascending or descending order. You can also elect to only show certain columns if you want to. You can see the ones that I have checked. So if I didn't want to see the uninstall date or install date column, I could deselect that, as you can see that I just did, or I could add different columns here too. Below that, here under actions, you're going to see an icon that looks like a pencil, and that's the edit icon. So if I need to edit existing information for a vehicle, I can click on the edit icon. The next icon that looks like an arrow, that allows you to move an entity. So if I wanted to move an entity to a different organization, for example, that is how I would accomplish that. Now under the vehicle list that we're currently looking at right now, the third icon from the left is the uninstall icon. And when you install a vehicle on the website, you have to have a TGT number, which there's this TGT number column, and that's the TGT number that's on the sticker on that relay that you physically install in each one of the vehicles. And that TGT number has to correlate with the vehicle ID on the website that you put that into. So that's where the correlation is made between that relay and the vehicle on the website. Now, if you install that vehicle, that relay in that vehicle, you put it onto the website, you enter in the TGT number, there may come a time when you get rid of that vehicle. And when you get rid of that vehicle, you have to physically take that relay out of the vehicle, and then you have to uninstall that TGT number from the website to disassociate it from that vehicle. And once you physically put it into a different vehicle, then you put that relay into the TGT number field on the newly created vehicle. So that's what the TGT number correlates to, and that's what that icon allows you to do. And then lastly, you have the delete icon. The delete icon, the circle with the X, if you need to remove a vehicle from the website, you can do that. I would suggest, instead of removing it, just set it to inactive. There's been times where people have deleted a vehicle and then they wish they would not have. Once you delete it, it's gone, so then you'd have to recreate it again. So it's better to just set that status on the edit page from active to inactive. Now, as far as adding a vehicle here, when I click on Add Vehicle here on the right, we'll get to the Add Vehicle screen. Now, any field that has an asterisk next to it is going to be a required field. Here I'd have to enter my vehicle ID. Then I can select the organization that I want that vehicle to be a member of. The relay type is either going to be none or XRS relay. If you know what the TGT number is of that relay that you're setting and configuring this vehicle with, then you'll select XRS relay and you'll fill in the TGT number. You may just be adding vehicles to the website before you know what relay you're putting in each vehicle, and if that's the case, then just leave this at none. The install date, put in the install date. The license plate field you can see is not a required field. You can put a starting odometer value in. There's your odometer reading date. If the vehicle, so yes or no, and then you can put in the VIN number if you choose to as well. Now over on the left hand side here, you'll see we're on the General Information tab. There's also a Vehicle Groups. When we talk about what groups a vehicle is going to be a member of, that's over here on the left, and I'll talk about resource groups here in a few minutes. And then you have the Advanced tab. On the Advanced tab, you have your most of the fields aren't required fields, so vehicle type, manufacturer, okay, and you can see some of the different fields here. At any point in time, if you have questions on what we're looking at, for example, right here, you can always go to the knowledge base for these vehicle field definitions. So what is, for example, like New York HUT, what does that mean? NYHUT. Well, if you click on the question mark here in the upper right hand corner, it'll bring up the help topic. And here, for example, I'd be able to scroll down and all those different fields here have definitions associated with them. Okay, so for example, NYHUT, there's the definition for that as an example. So if you run into a question in terms of, hey, what does this mean or what does that mean, go to the help and those definitions will be there. Now once you're done adding a vehicle, you can go ahead and click on the Save button here, and that'll add that vehicle to your list of vehicles. So that's an example right there, going through and adding a vehicle to the website. The next thing that we'll talk about then, we'll just go right down the list, is adding a driver to the website. Once again, I'll hover over Admin, navigate down to Drivers, and click on Drivers. And now, just like I was presented with my list of vehicles, I'm presented with my list of drivers. The filtering works the same whether you're on the driver list or the vehicle list. I can filter by organization, status, or resource group. There's my import and export buttons here, just like we saw with our list of vehicles. Then you can see over here on the left, we have our edit button, our move button, and our delete button, and then the respective columns that we have when we're looking at our list of drivers. To add a driver, you'll just click on Add Driver, and now we'll see the different definition fields for driver ID. Once again, if I have a question in terms of what the definition is for these, if I click on the question mark, I can scroll down and there's my definitions. Okay, for driver ID, unique identification for the driver. Login user ID, the name that will be displayed when the driver is logged into the XRS Web and XRS Mobile. Typically, those top two, driver ID and login username, you'll configure those the same. So your driver ID, if I put my driver ID as 2929, for example, that's what I'm going to put in for my login username. You don't want to have the drivers from having to remember, two different numbers. It's easier just to have them remember one. Okay. First name, last name are required. The organization which the driver is going to be a member of, just like for vehicles, we had to do that. The license number, typically that'll be your CDL number. And you want to make sure that that is a number that the drivers are going to remember, because if they can't remember how to log on, for example, onto XRS Mobile, they'll be prompted to enter in that license number to retrieve their login credentials. So you want to make sure that they have a number there that they're going to remember, and the CDL number is a good one for that. License expiration here, you can enter in, it's not a required field. And then here's the password that they're going to use to log into XRS Mobile or XRS Web. And then you'll also have to set up a resource group for inbound messages to be sent regarding this specific driver. And like I said, we'll talk about setting up resource groups here in a second. Also, driver group, so what driver is this group going to be a member of? And then the advanced tab. You can see some of the settings here for, do I want this driver to use our organization settings for hours of service? Endorsements you can enter in. Okay, and you can see some of the other information here. Once again, if you click on the question mark up here, it'll show you the different definitions for fields if you have questions pertaining to them. Lastly, just click on save, and that'll add that driver to your list of drivers. Next here, we'll talk about adding devices, our mobile devices. If we're using an Android phone or a tablet, whatever it may be, I click on devices here, and just like I saw a list of drivers and a list of vehicles, I see a list of devices now. There's my filtering options here on the top part of the screen again, just like we had with drivers and vehicles. My import and export buttons, just like we had with drivers and vehicles, and then how to add a device. And then you can also see the different columns here associated with when I'm adding a device, and I'll click on add device here in a second. Now, when you're adding a device and you have to install XRS Mobile on that device, you can see a couple buttons up here for send selected install link and send all install link. For example, if I wanted to send some install links to some of my Galaxy tabs here, the top 3, I could select in the checkbox right here and then click on send install link to send the install link to install the XRS Mobile application on those devices. Now over here on the left, also we have our edit button, we have our move button, and then our delete button, just like we had for vehicles and drivers. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on add device. Okay, and once again, here we have add mobile devices. Okay, where do I find that? That's in the help. Set up XRS Cloud. Add mobile devices. Click here to add a mobile device. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and click on that. And here you can see that it takes you step by step through the process of adding the device. So there's my add device icon, and here's the screen that we're looking at right here. Okay. As it says right down here, the XRS software may be downloaded to a device through a number of different methods. However, if you choose to send the install link from the add device page, ensure that the device can receive SMX test messages. Okay. So just a note that you want to make sure that if you have any questions, you navigate out to the help, and it should answer your questions for you. Now once again, when I get back to the add device page, here's where I enter in my phone number for that device. You don't have to worry about adding the Bluetooth address. The device type, so that's where I select whatever device it is that I'm utilizing. Should you find that your device isn't listed in that list, you want to send off an email to the XRS support email address, or give us a call at our telephone number up there under the Contact Us link that we talked about here. Then you select your carrier. the organization that that device is going to be associated with. And then here's the send install link. So if you do have SMS messaging, text messaging on the device, that's probably the easiest way to do it. But once again, it'll go through the different procedures that you could use to do that. Okay? And that's going to be in, for example, right here under XRS mobile installation guides. And that'll take you through when I'm doing the installation of the device. Well, here's my XRS installation guide for Android. Here's my XRS installation guide for Windows Mobile. And you can see over here on the left, that's information's found under driver resources. There's my installation guide. You can also see below that you got a law enforcement cab card and driver guides as well. When you click on installation guide for Android, it'll pull that guide up. And then what you're going to see as you scroll down, it goes through different aspects of installing XRS Mobile to your device. Anywhere from, there's some security settings that you have to deal with. And then as we scroll down here, it goes through the different installation methods. So installation method number 1, sending a text message to the device. Installation method 2, by entering a download address into your device's browser. Where's that download address? Well, if I scroll down in the document, that's installation method 2. There's the address right there. Okay? And just as it says, you enter that into your device's browser URL window, and it'll start that download of the XRS software to your device. So once again, the common theme is if you have questions, it's always a good first place to go to the XRS knowledge base up here, because those questions should be answered. Now if you don't find the answer to your question, contact us or send us an email, and we'll do our best to point that out to where that may be. Or if it's not there, then we'd sure like to get that added to the knowledge base so that next time you have that question, you're able to find that. Okay, along with adding devices, you have your device groups. So what resource groups does your device belong to? And then you have your advanced button here where you have some user-defined fields. Once you're done adding the device, go ahead and click on Save, and it'll add that device to the website. Okay, also under admin, you can add sites to the website. Just starting out, I want to recommend that you probably add your domicile sites to the database. Just like on any of the entity add pages that we just visited, you have your filtering methods here at the top for organization, resource group, site type, import and export buttons like we have previously talked about. And then here when we see our list of sites that we've added right here, you have your edit icon, your move, and your delete. And at the bottom of the page, this hasn't been mentioned yet, but you can search for, whether it's I'm on the site page right now, if I want to search for a site, or even when you're on the driver page or the vehicle page, you can search. And if I click on the magnifying glass there, I can search by these different variables right here. And it'd be obviously different if I was searching for a vehicle or a driver. Once you do a search, if you type in whatever you're searching for example, and then you just hit the enter button and it'll begin that search, and here you can see that I just searched for a specific site ID. So just how to search for a site there. Alright, I'm going to click on Add Site. And when I click on Add Site, I'm going to have to enter in a unique site ID here. Maybe if you have a numeric identifier for your domicile location, if it's domicile 123, enter in site ID 123, then your site name, organization that site's going to be associated with, the site type, so categorizing your sites. Is it a domicile? Is it a commerce stop? So are we hooking, dropping equipment, or delivering or picking up cargo, for example? Is it a fuel stop, for example? your arrival geocode type. Okay, it'll be circle for now. And once again, in the upper right hand corner here, if that happens, you can just go to the help and go to the knowledge base right here and navigate out to the profile field definitions for sites. Okay, so you have your arrival geocode type. We'll leave that at circle. We'll put in our address, city, state, zip code, and then you can go ahead and click on locate on map, and I'll show you what that does here in a second. Now the arrival radius, that's going to be when you set up that geocode radius, how big is that radius going to be? Okay, and I'll give you kind of a look at that here in a second. Once again, over here on the left, what groups is that site going to be a member of if you choose to select a resource group, and then you have your advanced tab, which is just user defined fields. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on cancel here, but I'm going to hit the edit button for a site that I've already got added, and I'm just going to hit the edit button for this Walmart right here. Now you can see that I've got the address and there's a latitude and longitude that are populated. When I click on locate on map right here, this just gives me a picture in terms of this is where I've got the center of the site added, and then this is the radius that I've got around that. Now the radius down here, we've got 1,000 feet, okay? And you just want to make sure that this encompasses everywhere that a vehicle of yours can park when they make a stop at that particular customer location. Now, one of the things that you are able to do is, if I set that at 1,000 and I realize, you know, that's too big, because maybe there's a site that's real close in proximity and we don't want those geocodes radiuses here to overlap. So what I can do is I can right click, let's say, on the inside of the circle, and I can use that define site arrival, and that'll shrink the circle, so to speak. Or if I need to make that circle bigger, I go to the outside of the circle, right click, and say define a site arrival, and that increases the size of the circle. Okay, now maybe I've set that location here incorrectly, so the center of the circle is incorrect. If I right click and say define a site location, it tells me there's already a center. Are you sure you want to redefine it? And I say yes. Now it just moved that. Okay, so that's how you can tweak that that information right there, whether it's the size of that circle or where the center of that circle is. And that center of that circle will typically be based off of the address that you configure here when I set that up. All right, so I'm not going to change this one. I'm going to hit close map here, and then I'm going to hit cancel. But that's how you modify the radius that's set up for your geocodes. So I'm going to hit cancel here because I don't want to change that. All right, so we've went through adding vehicles, adding drivers, devices, sites. We'll talk a little bit about adding a trailer. So if you want to add your trailers to the website, just like you added your vehicles, drivers, sites, there's your filtering function here at the top of the screen. Edit functionality, move, delete, just like we had for vehicles and drivers. If I click on add trailer, just like some of the other entity add screens, anything with an asterisk next to it's a required field. So I can fill in my trailer ID, organization, trailer type. You can see some of the other fields that I can add. Okay, there's my advanced tab that I clicked on, and then my resource groups that I want that trailer to be a member of. And then just like with all the other entity adds, you just had to hit the save button right here. Okay, so that's how to add the different entities to the website. Once again, I know I've said it a couple times already, but questions come up, good first place to start, the knowledge base. If you can't find what you're looking for, you have the contact us link up here in the upper right hand corner. Make sure you use that. Okay, in the admin drop down here, some of the other things that we'll talk about here are, let's talk a little bit about resource groups. So as we said, we're next going to talk about resource groups. And once again, when I go to admin, resource groups, I'm on the add resource groups page. We can filter by organization status, just like on a vehicle or driver page. Import and export button, just like we've seen before. And now it's showing me a list of the resource groups that I've got set up. What a resource group is a resource group can define a set of users, vehicles, drivers, sites, trailers, and devices for use in running reports, setting up alerts, scheduled reporting, things such as filtering in Fleet View and filtering in the entity list, and also for sending messages. Now, a resource group can contain multiple types of entities. And you'll see that here when I click on Add Resource Group. So I give that resource group a name. I can select the organization that I want that resource group to be associated with, whether or not it's the default group or not, and whether or not it's going to be a shared resource group. And then below that, you can see here, I can select users to input for that resource group, vehicles, drivers for that resource group, trailers, devices, and sites if I choose to. I might just have a resource group of selected users. I might have a resource group of users and drivers. So when I send like a message, let's say to a set of drivers, it also goes to the users on the website as well, would be an example. Okay, so that's what you get with a resource group. Now also under admin, and once again, as far as the resource groups are concerned, you can find those in the knowledge base here under admin and resource group. And if I click on the plus sign, you can see add, edit, delete. Okay, so information pertaining to those resource groups out there. Now also under admin, we have users. So how do I add a user to the website? There's my filtering functions up in the top part of the screen. Here's the different columns here that I've got set up that I'm viewing here. Once again, you can change those if you want to. I'm going to click on Add User. Okay, and here's where I set up the username for the respective user. First name, last name, the email address, that's a required field. Organization that user is going to be a member of, and what user groups that user's associated with. Here's the different user roles right here. Okay, so you got the different user roles right now are admin, read-only, dispatch, operations, maintenance, Fleet View, and mobile installer. So those are the different groups that you can add as that user's a member of, or user role is what I meant. Now here's the dashboard configuration settings. So there's two different dashboards. There's the fleet compliance and the fleet performance, or if the user doesn't want to see the dashboard when they log in, you can leave it set to none. And then here's where I enter in my password information. You also have a password never expires and account locked. And then there's an email password checkbox. So if you have let's say a user forget their password, I can always go into the list of users here, hit the edit button, and then go to the bottom of the screen, click on email password, and then click on save, and it'll email that password to that user, right? So we talked about resource group users, we touched on user roles, and I'll click on user roles right here, and here's the different user roles. When I click on, for example, I'll just click on one of them. This is read only, and if I wanted to see like what associated permissions were associated with that read only user role, you can see over here on the right, this is the access that user would have on the right, and then on the left are the available permissions. So if you wanted to copy, let's say, the read-only user role and rename it as something else, but maybe add some more permissions to it. I could add more permissions here by selecting them and then clicking on the arrow going to the right, and that would add the permissions from the left to the right. Okay, so that's how you can modify, set up user roles of your own. Right here, this icon here, when I'm in the user role list, this is copy. So if I want to, like I said, copy a user role and modify the permissions associated with that user role, we can do that. There's also an add user role button up here in the upper right hand corner, where if I click on add user role, now I can configure it however I want it. Give that role a name, description, click on select here, and now I can add whatever user roles I want from the left to the right. Okay, so I can create my own customized user roles in that regard. Alright, so everything that we've talked about today, like I said a few different times, most of the information you're going to find under help and in the knowledge base. And if there's information that you can't find, we'd appreciate an email. Make us aware of that if we're not already, so that we can get that added to the knowledge base. And hopefully when you want to find something, you can find it in the knowledge base. Well, that completes call number 1 here. Thank you for watching call number 1, and we'll be having another series of calls here that will be available for you to watch as well. Thank you.